So 10th of February 2026. Today I thought I would have a bit of fun and take you through almost 300 years of the definition of the word conspiracy and actually find out when the word conspiracy theory entered the dictionary. Now I'm going to be quite swift because I've tried to do this post already and it was 20 minutes, so I'm going to shrink it. I'm going to go through all these dictionaries. I've got a massive pile ready, but at the end of the post you will see all the definitions, the photos for each of the definitions. So then that way you can read everything at your leisure. I'm going to skip a bit, I'll give you the dates and I'll tell you where there's differences. Okay, I'm going to start with 1755 Samuel Johnson Dictionary. Okay, so this is English language from England, and we will see with the American one shortly after, and it'll be the same. Conspiracy, a private agreement among several persons to commit some crime. A plot, a concerted treason. Concerted here means getting together and planning. All right, so there's an element of treason here, which is betrayal. Now, second definition, in law, an agreement of men to do anything, always taken in the evil part. And third, a concurrence, a general tendency of many causes to one event. So this definition hasn't changed at all. This is like various causes that come together and they cause an event. So we use that all the time. You know, for example, the bad weather and the late train conspired to make his day really difficult, for example. So I'm not going to go over this definition as we go through the dictionaries because this hasn't changed at all. And it comes from the Latin, con means with, and aspirare, which means to breathe. So actually conspire means to breathe together. And to conspire is obviously to get together, to plan in secret some crime or something unlawful. So this is 1755. Now we're going to go straight to the Webster's 1851. So we're jumping almost 100 years here. And we have a conspiracy, a combination of men for an evil purpose, an agreement between two or more persons to commit some crime in concert, particularly a combination to commit treason or excite sedition or insurrection against a government or a state, a plot. And then in law, an agreement between two or more persons falsely and maliciously to indict or procure to be indicted an innocent person of felony. This is a really interesting legal definition. So there's two or more people getting together, planning to get a third person charged for a crime that they didn't commit. All right, for an innocent person. Now, in definition 1 here, what is interesting is you will see in a couple of dictionaries, it is a combination of men for an evil purpose. But what is interesting is the examples it gives there is perhaps against the government, particularly maybe against the government. So it's funny how this definition can be taken, just to see one side of the story, just to be very quick to attack people, smaller people, and blame them that they're attacking, a government or important group and that sort of thing. But actually it goes both ways. And as we'll see in the definition, it's just both ways, right? Okay, let's go next one. This is 1895 Lloyd's Dictionary, and it's actually very much the same definitions, but no, this one's exactly the same, so I'm going to add that. Don't need to read that. There's some slight differences in some. So this is the Funk and Wongnalls. This is 1913 dictionary. Now here it's got something a little bit extra, which I think is very important. Has the same, an agreement between two or more persons to do an evil act in concert. Again, particularly combination to commit treason. Now, criminal law, a combination between two or more persons to commit any act punishable by law or to effect a legal purpose by criminal or unlawful means. So this is an additional definition which is in here and in some of the other dictionaries. So you're effecting a legal purpose, you're achieving a legal purpose, but using criminal means. And I think this is really important. And that made me think, for example, during the lockdowns in the UK, the government offered loans and grants for businesses. And apparently there were something like over £2 billion of fraud, business fraud, by people who claim those loans, and they were not actually businesses. So the way they did it, it was a legal purpose. They might have set up a company and that sort of thing. Legal purpose, they got that, but the way it was done was criminal. So I think it's a very interesting definition. Okay, next one. Just running through those. Right, this is Webster's, and this one is 1944. And we see the same definitions, exactly the same. Yeah, same thing. Act of conspiring, combination of man for an evil purpose. An agreement between two or more persons to commit a crime in concert. So we always have two people minimum in a conspiracy. And just as a point, this is a Black Laws Dictionary. And in a definition of conspiracy here, it does say an agreement by two or more persons to commit an unlawful act. So that's the same in there. Okay, now we jump to Universal English Dictionary, and this is 1956. And we find the same definitions, but we find something a little extra. We discover there is a word called conspiracy of silence, and it has two definitions, a good one and a bad one. The innocent sense means an agreement not to comment on or discuss something, especially publicly. So this is not looking at anything negative, it's just an agreement not to comment on something. Then the bad sense is determination to hush up what ought to be revealed. So I thought this is quite interesting, because this conspiracy of silence starts to appear right now. So it's 1956. Conspiracy theory still hasn't arrived in a dictionary. Now we jump to the World Book Dictionary, and this is 1980. And we also find a conspiracy of silence, a conspiring to keep something wrong, damaging, or unlawful from being divulged. So there's definitions there. The conspiracy definitions are starting to shrink a little bit. Just an act of conspiring, secret planning to do something unlawful, a combination of persons for an evil or unlawful purpose. So fine, just the same. It hasn't changed. It just doesn't change at all. 300 years and there's no change in that. Now we have Webster's New World Dictionary, and this is 1991. So it's not long. And again, we don't actually have conspiracy of silence. That's not in there. And there's no conspiracy theory either. And this is 1991. And we have the same definitions. A bit more detail, just you have the planning, which is the conspiracy, that, the planning together, the secret planning for an unlawful act. You also have the plan itself can be a conspiracy. So the action of planning, the plan itself, or the actual group of people doing it is also called a conspiracy. Okay, that's right, to breathe together, conspire. Interesting, eh? To breathe together, to agree, to unite. Good, now we jump into 1992. And this is the American Heritage Dictionary. And actually, it is a very, very good dictionary. I don't talk about it very much. I probably should, actually. But it does have very, very good synonym studies. So this is, looking at the very slight differences between words which are very similar. And this is why I really like it. So in conspiracy here, now we get conspiracy theory appears, and it's 1992. So it appears in that one. And as a point, what does a theory mean? So you have, for example, a theory of relativity or a scientific theory, right? And this is a very specific definition. In that sense, it will be systematically organized knowledge applicable in a relatively wide variety of circumstances, especially a system of assumptions, accepted principles and rules or procedures, devised to analyze, predict, or otherwise explain the nature or behavior of a specified set of phenomena. So this is quite a long definition. That's the kind of definition you find in the sciences, chemistry, physics, and that sort of things, theory. But this is not the definition for conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory, we have definition 4 here. So a theory, an assumption based on limited information or knowledge, a conjecture, which is a kind of guess. And it's from the Greek theoria, from theoros, which means spectator. Okay, probably from theo, which means viewing, and oros, seeing. So when we go back here to conspiracy theory, here's the definition that it gives. A theory seeking to explain a disputed case or matter as a plot by a secret group or alliance rather than an individual or isolated act. So a theory seeking to explain a disputed case or matter as a plot by a secret group or alliance rather than an individual or isolated act. So I'm going to stay out of politics, but here you can see that is simply a theory, an assumption, without all the facts, obviously, because per the definition I just read you of theory. There's a theory that an incident has occurred. And behind that incident, that was caused by a plot by a secret group or alliance. So an example of a simple accident would be, let's say, Princess Diana dying. I'm just going to use that as an example. That's an isolated act. So it's an accident. So it could just be an isolated person. You know, the driver made a mistake. The car crashed. But as it turns out, you know, through history and a lot of information, you know, there was a theory at the time that it was a secret plot against her. It turned out to be, I suppose, correct. Not that I've got into that much, but I just remember it at the time. That's all. That was just a good example of it. Unfortunately now, conspiracy theory has become something like anybody who's got any opinion on anything, who observes something, if it goes against the narrative or it goes against, you know, a particular group, bam, they get attacked as in, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. But that is not what a conspiracy theory is. It's simply a theory that there could be somebody behind a particular act, a group. So there could be a conspiracy behind a certain situation. Nothing wrong with that. Like, for example, here, you know, this is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. There are definitely conspiracies going on. You know, there are, you know, extraordinary things happening with the intention to drug a huge proportion of planet Earth. It's not a theory. It is completely factual. It's well known. Everything is there. I mean, now, as I know, I said I try to stay out of politics, but, you know, and I go off to Davos and all these places like that. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of secret dealings going on. But to say that it's a theory is actually incorrect, because it's not a theory. You can see it with your own eyes. So all I'm trying to say here, if you've observed something with your own eyes, you know, you've got the facts. Well, if the facts are there, it can't possibly be a theory, because a theory is a guess based on limited information. If the facts are all present, then conversely, that couldn't be a theory because the facts are all there. So I'm just looking at both sides of the coin. So unfortunately nowadays, because in the state of the world that we're in, people don't have a discussion anymore, or they don't debate properly, or they don't exchange their views, that anybody who has any view is very quickly branded with labels such as a conspiracy theorist. But it doesn't match this definition, because it's just a theory seeking to explain a disputed case or matter as a plot by a secret group. If we know there's a secret group or a group of people doing it, well, it's not a theory. So anyway, I thought I'd just point that out, because it's actually, the word is being very misused. Apparently it was used like by the CIA originally, or I don't know. The internet comes up with all sorts of things, but I'm not really interested. I'm just going by definitions. I just get fed up of hearing that, because people have a right to their own opinion. And, well, you know, if you've observed something and you know it to be true, then it's true. Here's the Oxford Dictionary. This is 2010. So we looked at 1992, and conspiracy theory appeared in there. This is the latest Oxford Dictionary. And the definition of conspiracy has got even smaller. Not as exciting, not as thorough as the definitions in 1851 or in the 1900. Here it just says conspiracy, a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. And action of plotting or conspiring. That's it. I mean, there were much better definitions earlier, much more thorough, because you're looking at treason, you see. So anybody who's going to conspire to betray, what is treacherous? What is treason? It's betrayal. So if you think that you have an entire population that's being betrayed by a government with lies, yeah, they've got a right to think that there's been some conspiracy going there. It doesn't make them a conspiracy theorist if they can see it right in front of their eyes. Anyway, it does have conspiracy of silence, which is an agreement to say nothing about an issue that should be generally known. Again, you see, it's been mellowed. It's been diluted. In the other dictionaries, we're looking at things that should be, you know, that are unlawful, incorrect, wrong, that should be divulged. And this is a little bit different. That should be generally known. I don't like that. I've got to be honest, Oxford is disappointing in many definitions at the moment. Not the quality of what used to be in the past. So here you go. That's your conspiracy definitions. Look at all the definitions for yourself at the end of this post and make up your own mind on it.